All right, when we have polynomials of higher degree, there's a couple of things that you ought to be able to determine about those polynomials. So let me give you a polynomial and let me kind of walk you through it. I'm going to say t cubed, f of t is t cubed minus 8t squared plus 16t. The things I'm going to ask you about are the zeros. I'm going to ask you about end behavior. I'm going to ask you about turning points. I'm going to ask you about multiplicity. Those are the key things that I'm going to ask you about. And it's important that you be able to determine all of these things. So let's do one at a time. For zeros, you're going to have to factor and set the polynomial equal to 0. Okay, so in this case, when I look at this, I can factor a t out of the initial equation. And when I do that, I'm left with this. And then from there, I need two numbers that multiply to 16 and add to -8, which is -4 and -4. And so I rewrite that as this. Okay? To find the zeros, I set that equal to 0. And my zeros are going to be 0 because of that t, and 4 because of the t minus 4. Now, a polynomial of degree 3 has 3 zeros. This 4 is essentially a double, but you only need to write it once. So you would declare these as the zeros. Okay? The second thing that you need to be able to do is you need to be able to assess end behavior. And I gave you a chart about that. For determine end behavior, you look at two things. You look at whether or not the degree of the polynomial is even or odd. In our case, it's odd because we have a degree 3. So we're dealing with an odd polynomial. And then we look at the leading coefficient, which in this case is a 1. And we look at to see if it's positive or negative. In this case, it's positive. So we have an odd degree and a positive leading coefficient. When that happens, there are there's two different scenarios for odd. One is, starts like this and ends like this. And the other one is, starts like this and ends like this. Okay, and you have a table that's going to tell you which of these it actually is. And I'll let you go back to your notes and into your handout to determine which of the two it is. In the case of even, okay, even degree polynomials, they either start like this and end like this, or they start like this and end like this. So the case with even is they start and end in the same direction. The case with odd degree, they start and end in opposite directions. And the way you tell which one it is then what is the sign on the leading coefficient, positive or negative. So our answer for this one is either this or this. You can go back to your handout and you'll need to memorize that as to whether or not this would be rise left, fall right, or this would be fall left and rise right. Okay, that's the terminology we use. In terms of turning points, the maximum number of turning points is the degree minus 1. We have a degree 3, so the maximum number that this curve, this polynomial is going to turn is 2 times. Okay, you got to be able to determine that. And then finally there's multiplicity. In case of multiplicity, multiplicity could be odd or even. You look at the exponent of the factor. So here are two factors, t and t minus 4. We don't write a 1 here, but that's essentially t to the first. This is odd. So let me just write t times t minus 4 squared. The multiplicity here is odd because it's 1. The multiplicity here is even because the exponent on t minus 4 is 2. When we have odd multiplicity, and we're at 0, it means that the function is going through the x-axis. Odd means through the axis, through the x-axis. We have even, like we do here, it means it touches the x-axis, but does not go through. So at 4, this is a 0 at 4, the graph is going to come down and then come back up. It is not going to go through the x-axis. But the answer to the question, what's the multiplicity, is you would write this, and you'd have a little arrow going up to the t and say that's odd, and then you'd have an arrow going up to the t minus 4 squared saying that's even. But the effect of the odd and even you need to know as well. Odd means it goes through the x-axis at the 0, and even means it touches the x-axis at the 0. Good luck.